Today, we're diving into a really incredible story, how one collaboration back in the 17th century between an Ethiopian monk and a German scholar completely reshaped how the world and even how Ethiopia itself thinks about its own long and storied history. When you picture Ethiopia, the Lion of Judah is probably one of the first things that comes to mind, right? It's just so powerful. It speaks to imperial history, to national pride, to a heritage that feels like it goes back forever. It feels ancient, authentic, totally Ethiopian. But what if I told you that the version of this symbol we all know and recognize actually got its start not in the highlands of Ethiopia, but in the office of a German scholar? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together. So let's peel back the layers on this symbol's secret origin, and in the process, we're going to uncover something much bigger about how history itself actually gets made. Okay, but to really crack this historical mystery, we first need to get on the same page about how historians do what they do. We need to understand how history is written in the first place. So let's do a quick detour into the tools of the trade. I promise this is super important, and it'll make everything else we talk about just click into place. First off, the basics. History. At its heart, it's just the study of past events. You gather up the evidence, you put it in order, and you try to figure out what happened. Simple enough? But then you've got historiography. Now, this is where it gets really juicy. This is the study of how history gets written. It's not just about what happened, but who is telling the story, what evidence did they choose to use, and what point of view were they coming from. It's like the making of documentary for history. And key to all of this is understanding sources. A primary source is an eyewitness. It's a letter written at the time, a coin, a fossil. A secondary source is like a history book. It's someone analyzing all those primary sources. And a tertiary source, like an encyclopedia, just compiles everything. For our story, that difference between a primary and secondary source is absolutely everything. All right, with that background, let's meet the two men at the center of this incredible story. Their chance meeting would, no exaggeration, change the study of Ethiopia forever. On one side, we have Hayod Ludolf. He's this Protestant German scholar, a total prodigy with languages, from a well-off family. He's operating in a Europe that's pretty nervous about the Ottoman Empire, and they're looking around for potential allies, like the legendary Christian Empire of Africa. On the other side is Abba Gorgorios. He's a very well-educated Ethiopian monk from a noble family who was exiled to Rome after converting to Catholicism. I mean, you've got two brilliant guys from two completely different universes. So they meet in Rome in 1649, and Gorgorios becomes Ludolf's teacher. But the real game changer is in 1652. Gorgorios travels all the way to Germany, and for 3 intense months, they just work side by side. Gorgorios is the ultimate insider, explaining Ethiopia's history, its politics, its culture. He basically becomes Ludolf's living, breathing primary source. Almost 30 years later, Ludolf publishes his masterpiece, Historia Ethiopia, a book that would define how Europeans understood Ethiopia for centuries to come. And this right here is the main takeaway. This massively important book was written by a European for a European audience using a completely European framework to try and make sense of a non-European reality. Now, to his credit, Ludolf knew this was a potential problem. He went out of his way to warn his readers against all the fantastical, totally fake drawings of Ethiopia that were floating around Europe at the time. He was genuinely trying to be accurate. And this shows you exactly what he was up against. On the left, you've got what's supposed to be a portrait of the Ethiopian emperor, but it's a direct copy of a famous portrait of William the Conqueror, the King of England, on the right. This is exactly the kind of fake stuff Ludolf wanted to correct. But, and this is a huge but, even Ludolf couldn't completely escape the trap of his own perspective. This picture is from his own book. It's supposed to show an Ethiopian king being fed. But look at the details. The turban, the table, the plates, none of it is actually Ethiopian. It's what a European artist imagined the scene would look like, projecting this generic Oriental vibe onto it. And this European filter went way beyond just the pictures. Ludolf organized his whole understanding of the Ethiopian state using concepts that didn't really fit. He made a sharp distinction between civil and military institutions that wasn't really there. He called Ethiopian provinces kingdoms so that the title King of Kings would make more sense as a European-style emperor. And, for our story, the most important thing he did was design a national emblem in the European tradition of heraldry. And that brings us right back to where we started. That European-style emblem he created didn't just stay in a book. It took on a life of its own. Here it is, Ludolf's Mayan of Judah, a symbol for Ethiopia, but designed in Germany, based on European artistic rules. It was an invention, created for a book. But then, this is where it gets so fascinating. Over the next couple of centuries, as missionaries and travelers and diplomats brought Ludolf's super influential book with them, this specific image started to filter back into Ethiopia itself. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, Ethiopian rulers actually started adopting this exact design for their official seals. It started appearing on money, on government buildings, and yeah, as you see right here, even on student ID cards. The symbol had come home. And this is the truly amazing part. What started as a 17th century European interpretation, an invented tradition, was eventually adopted and, just through sheer repetition over time, became a genuinely authentic and beloved symbol of modern Ethiopian identity. And this really gets to the fundamental power of history, doesn't it? As the great historian David McCullough said, history is who we are, why we are the way we are. The stories we tell about where we come from literally shape who we are today. So that leaves us with a final question to really think about. The story of Ludolf and Gregorios isn't about deception or getting things wrong. It's all about perspective. And it should force all of us to ask, for any piece of history we hold dear, who wrote it, what lens were they looking through, and how has that story shaped the world that we see today?